Heather. Oh, switch screens, that's better. It's great to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so honored. This is such a gift. So thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So, for everyone who's watching, stick around. I think we're going to hit on some amazing topics around menopause and the past, the present, the future, whatever's there. Whatever's going to come through is going to come through. So, if you're watching this, enjoy it. If you feel like you want to leave some comments behind, then please do, like in the chat, just say what you're feeling, what's going on for you, you agree, disagree, whatever. Participate in this. So, what I'll do, Heather, is I'll throw to you if you would like to introduce yourself and how you got to this place.
Sure, yes. So I was born Heather, but I've rebranded myself. So I call myself Flux. A lot of people call me Flux. My mother still calls me Heather. And I'm okay with that. So what brought me to this place? I've always had, I call it shamanic abilities since I was very young. I had a health crisis when I was about little less than 2 years old, and that awoke me. Um, and I didn't know what was going on for my whole life, except I had little clues. But then I kept getting shamed for my ability to see and know things. And so when I had my daughter, that was a huge, huge wake up call. That rite of passage was unbelievable. And I was not prepared at all. And then now menopause, I'm 3 years in now, and it's 10 times more transformative than motherhood was. So it has launched me into I am just impassioned about educating and reframing menopause for women because it is a magical transformation. But we're, led to believe it's something to fear or it's something to be ashamed or try to hold on to our youth, try to hold on to um, the past, but that's not actually what menopause is asking from us as women. So, yeah, I have so much to share. So,
Fantastic. Thank you so
yeah,
much. I'm going to switch over to Flux now. I'm not going to call you
yeah.
Heather. Flux, fantastic. So when you say it went 10 times, like what do you mean by 10 times? Or 10 times magic, 10 times presence? Like what was there?
Well, when I started to drop in estrogen, estrogen and chemicals in general can do all kinds of things to us. The hormones, though, are uh, like it can be kryptonite or it can be uh, like the best drug ever, right? Like that you're just on the highest high. So in menopause, when the estrogen starts to get depleted, your the ability to have serotonin just naturally produced because you have estrogen. So estrogen helps us have serotonin. So we have those feel good feelings. So without that, you have to face the reality of life without the extra boost or the training wheels of estrogen. And we had to do this before. We were very little, we were young, so we could handle the change of going from no estrogen to estrogen when we had our periods as women. And it was a big thing, but we were so young we could just sort of roll with the punches, and it took time. It was like gradual as our periods built and our whole bodies and systems got used to this new influx of hormone cycles. So we've been in these cycles for 40 years, and then all of a sudden you're not in the cycle anymore and everything's changing. In fact, the way you think, the way you feel, what you care about, it feels like you're somebody else, like
Mm.
completely. And similar to motherhood, where your identity you completely shift. And in what I, it's interesting how when you're breastfeeding, your estrogen is low as well because the body wants to keep you from ovulating because you're already have an infant. So you don't need another one. And nature magically knows this. So, and that's the part of the magic of being a woman is completely lost. From the minute we're born, we go through puberty. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, you got your period. Oh, yeah, now you have to deal with this. Rather than the celebration of like, wow, it's an amazing thing that now you can create babies. That's
Mm,
a very powerful gift. So we don't celebrate that. And then we go into motherhood, and motherhood's sort of like an automatic, like, of course you're going to be a mother. And then, of course, you're going to give birth. And they don't talk about the trauma of child. I mean, you're literally pushing out a little baby out of yourself. Uh, so they undersell the whole thing. And then I say they, and I'm just saying as a culture, as a society, like we've adapted to trying to control and manage nature. So menopause has been going on forever. Way back in I think like 350 BC, they've tracked it back, but it's only in the 1930s that the hormone replacement therapy started to gain popularity because it was uncomfortable to be around women when they're going through this change
mm,
because they are angry, because the serotonin, you have to now figure out how to create serotonin. This is why it's magical. And you get to own your power now, where before it was kind of like you could coast a little bit because you knew your cycle was coming. And so we have these boosts of estrogen right as we ovulate. And so it's like we kind of get that hit. It's like, okay, whew, my period's coming. Although, and then it's like, oh no, my period's coming. And then it's like, ugh, I'm on my period. Like, this is just the narrative. So, um, in menopause, there's no like hope. There's no like, oh, I'm gonna feel better next month.
right.
So you have to manufacture your own serotonin through diet, exercise, doing things with other people, being in community, doing fun things that you like to do, dancing. You actually are the one in power. So estrogen, what this midwife taught me, which she saved my life. I had a whole consultation with her, and she illuminated the real picture of womanhood for me, which saved me. I mean, I was lost. I was frustrated. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I can't live this way. I don't even know who I am. Like, how do I? And she walked me through all my rites of passage, helped me see the whole blueprint of my life in such a way that I was like, oh, I'm growing into the wise woman. Like, it's a huge transformation and a responsibility because we do neural pruning when we are going through menopause. There's neural pruning. And the reason that happens is because we are meant to only focus on what's most important. So
Mm,
while everyone thinks it's brain fog and I can't think, and it's not that. It's your body is going that focus on what's important. And then we become the leaders of the future because we can see clearly. Where the younger women are still in the kind of haze of estrogen. And my midwife said, or she's a shamanic midwife, but she said that estrogen is actually a veil. It creates a veil for us to be self-sacrificing and accommodating because we need to be to take care of kids, to take care of our babies. So estrogen has this magical component to it that helps us get through life, but it also blinds us from things that we just tolerate because we have to get by, to survive, to have our tribe survive. But estrogen and menopause, I'm sorry, menopause, without estrogen, we see the truth. And of course, we're angry. We're like, this, none of this is working. None of this is working. But, I don't know who they are, but the powers that be, you know, is like, keep us down, keep women thinking that we're dumb, we're fat, we're hysterical, and we have no wisdom. And so we get pushed aside and we become invisible. Now, this is the other cool thing about menopause. Sorry, I'm going on and on. Do you have a
Please keep on going. This is
question?
perfect. We're on a roll. Keep on going.
So, the other cool thing about menopause is you do become invisible because you're not producing the pheromones like you were before to get attention and to procreate, basically. So, there's this weird thing that happens where like you don't get noticed anymore, and it's just like, this is so weird. Like, what? Before I could just speak and it was like everyone was paying attention to me, and now it's like nobody could care less. So now, while that's upsetting at one level, there's the beauty of it, means that we have this cloak of invisibility, and we don't have to manage all of the sort of sexual desiring, kind of like predatory vibes that can come from that. And we can really just relax a little bit, because that kind of vibe can cause fear and cause us to be kind of on guard. Like, okay, I'm getting a lot of attention here. Maybe I don't want all this attention.
Mm.
So it's kind of nice, because then you get to really speak your mind, and you're not getting all of that kind of weird, you know, predatory vibes.
Mm.
So it is a rite of passage, and it is magical once you get through it. So perimenopause, the that's the beginning, and that's when a lot of women, and even in studies, I did research about the suicide rate of women is higher when they're going through perimenopause. And it's because that drop in estrogen drops the serotonin, and we do, even if you're a totally healthy, mentally healthy woman, you might still have suicidal ideation, just because your brain is having to adjust to not having that boost of serotonin. So a lot of women think, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm losing my mind. And, they, you know, go on antidepressants, or, like, okay, let's put you on HRT. Like, it's like always trying to fix the thing. But it's not, we not, menopause is not a disease. It's not even a disorder, but a lot of of society has it look that way. So instead, it's like addressing it because we need community. So the thing that they've found that helps suicidal ideation is being in community with other women who are also going through this. This is why sister circles are so important, and we need each other. We have to heal that sisterhood wound that we've developed over the years of being competitive and dramatic. Like, all those things will start to work themselves out if we can come together and have safe spaces where we can be seen, heard, felt. We can be angry, we can rage, we can cry, we can have all the feelings, and not be afraid of, like, well, if I fall apart, I'm not going to be able to come back from that, you know? So all of it is a part of the passage. It's a rite of passage, literally. And we are. I told a woman today, actually. She's like, I would not call it. I would not call it magical. I'm like, right. So the other thing we forget is how powerful we are. So if you think about the Olympics, right, and if you were training to be in the Olympics, and that training would be intense, super intense, and you would not like it every day. It would not be magical training for the Olympics. Being in the Olympics might feel magical, probably, from what I've seen, right? But the training part, not so much. And as women, we forget how powerful we are because our whole purpose is to keep life continuing.
Mm.
So our job is is to create life, to continue life force, to keep moving. And that's a huge responsibility. And there's no coasting through that. Like, we have to take that ownership from the beginning, but we've lost all this, in the tribes and the tribal cultures. And it's really in the West. In other cultures, they don't have these same menopausal symptoms. In fact, they're different in different countries. Um, um, so I I want women to realize how much power they have and know that this menopausal stage is like Olympic training to become the wise women that need to shake things up, that need to say no, that need to change some ways that the world works. Like, we need days of, so there's two companies in the United States that offer um, menstrual days off. This is a thing. Like, we need a different way of living life than men do, because men cycle through their hormones in 24 hours. You're done every 24 hours. So guess what? We've followed that cycle because we have never really been allowed to live our lives in our 28-day cycle, where we need certain things at certain times of our cycle, and we need to back off at certain times of our cycle. And that's part of our discernment and our intuition and how we really tap into our magic as women. But and again, in other countries, it's different, but we're living more and more in a society that's run by productivity and accomplishment,
Mm.
and that's not sustainable.
No.
But the women's voice has been squashed. So we need to rise and be like, okay, guys, this is not okay anymore. And we need to slow down when we need to. And it doesn't mean we're lazy. It doesn't mean we're weak because we need 2 days off during our cycle to recalibrate. That's just natural. And there is so much menstrual shame still. Menstrual shame, I mean, so it makes menopause that much harder because for our whole lives, we've been shaming our bodies, trying to stop the menstrual cycle by taking birth control, which most people don't know. Like, birth control stops ovulation. So you're basically not in your cycle at all. And it shuts down 150 other processes.
Wow.
Yeah. But again, like, none of this is educated. It's just like, well, go on birth control. That'll help with your cramps.
Yeah.
It'll like it's it's a time, and we're in a time, with the whole Barbie movie, and I feel like Venus is in retrograde right now in Leo, and like, this is our time
It
to
is.
rise, and like have our voices heard and be honored to have menopause. Like, holy cow, we are the queens. Like, it's the priestess time. It's
Mm.
the time to own our power. We're not controlled by hormones anymore. There's so much to be like revered about it. And then there's all the fear. So they make us afraid because we're going to have heart issues. There's like cardiovascular risks, and then bone density issues, osteoporosis. Like, they throw all of these medical issues into the mix, saying, well, this is why you need to continue trying to be on hormones. But actually, if you do the research, and there's a beautiful book, The Wisdom of Menopause by Christiane Northrup. She's a doctor that is more on the alternative way of thinking about women and menstrual cycles, or just being a woman. And so what we need to understand is it's not about the hormone that we need to replace. It's we need to take better care of our bodies. So, osteoporosis, you just have to replace the body with the nutrients you need to help build the thing in the mechanics of bone. We have two types of like bone systems. There's a bone system that eats away at the bone, and there's a bone system that grows bone
Yep.
all the time through our whole lives. What happens is we stop getting the nutrients we need to help the bone growing organ system
Yep.
to keep going.
The turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and all you have to do is replace your start taking the like vitamin D, vitamin C, um, vitamin
K2.
K.
Yeah.
There's like a whole list of things. If you just replace those things, you'll reinvigorate your bone making mechanisms and you're going to be okay. And
Mm.
then with the heart stuff, that has to do with just taking better care. You have to change your lifestyle. You can't keep drinking wine every night, and you can't just get 2 hours of sleep, and you can't work your ass off 60 hours a week. Yes, of course you're going to have heart issues because that's not the cycle of your life you're at anymore. And
Mm.
that's hard for a lot of women. It was hard for me. I'm a go, 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 like, don't tell me what to do kind of woman. So when menopause hit me, I was like, oh God, like it was a death sentence. I was
Mm.
just like, like if this is the rest of my life, I don't know what to do.
Mm.
That's why I had to call this midwife, this shamanic midwife, and this is why I'm so passionate. I'm doing a workshop on the 13th about menopause, the magic of menopause, and I I want women to know like there is a way to experience this next phase of our life and take care of our bodies so that we don't have all of these health issues that they make us fear from not having hormones. Like it's just it's not true.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's like how in birth, like now the whole thing is like epidurals, cesareans, like these are just normal things. Like, well, you'll go to the hospital and then you'll have an epidural and then you'll probably have a cesarean and you know, and like you have to have vaginal exams every 5 hours. And it's like, this is not true,
Yeah.
but it's become the norm. And so HRT now has become the norm. It's like, well, as soon as you start to feel that, let's get you on hormones. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be the last resort. If you've tried nutritional changes, lifestyle changes, you've backed out of some of all the work you're doing, and you've taken some time, more time for yourself, let's see if that works first, you know? So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I've talked a lot.
And you talk correctly. Like I hear the accuracy in what you're saying. I hear the passion in what you're saying. Do you get many opportunities to speak like this?
I'm starting to, right?
Right.
It's taken me a while to collect the ways to talk about it without sounding too woo woo
Yeah.
or to I want the information to be accessible because I come from a tech background. Like I was a user experience designer at Disney. Like I don't have like the medical background, but I am very much about research and very much about behavior changes. And I've always been committed to like how do we get people to change behaviors. So as soon as I had my daughter, I I was like, I can't keep doing this work. And then I found yoga and it was like, oh, yoga is about changing behaviors in human beings. And then I was like, the human being is actually the ultimate interface.
Yeah.
Like
It is.
it's the ultimate. So it's just sort of a natural progression. But I know how hard it is to go from, I mean, I was on my A game and then I had my daughter and I was like, whoo, like everything stopped. I was
Mm.
like, wow. I mean, huge identity crisis. It took me years. I mean, it wasn't instant. You know, she's 11 now. So I would say probably around 7, I started to feel more like what a mom would feel like. And
Right.
that's a long time, you know, but it takes time, especially if we're not taught or not educated or
Or if there's
supported.
taboo or shame around it, like if I compare my stories with my sisters, I've got two sisters, and then not being shown, like actively shown what a menstrual cycle was. And then I have two brothers as well, and then us not knowing like what this thing is, right? There's this confusion. What is a menstrual cycle? And then as I grew, partners and their menstrual cycles. Like, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to ovulate? What does it mean to bleed? Like, I have one partner who despised her period, like despised it, like hated it,
Yeah.
would rather tear it out of her body because of the discomfort. And I've had other partners that were like, wear menstrual cups, like, or free bleed, and it'd be like, yeah, this is completely embracing their menstrual cycle. And then
Yeah.
when I look at like sanitary products, when I look at how we um, frame it, how we frame the menstrual cycle, and then men in particular, oh, my wife's on a period. Like, it's like this thing around, oh, she's just on a cycle, she's on a period, and just disregard like her reality of whatever's going on for her. I
Yeah.
remember in one relationship, if we didn't sort out whatever the emotional issues were between cycles, it would explode.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, cool. There's a rhythm here that needs to be attended to, and
Yeah.
I was nowhere as aware as I am now in that relationship. Um, but I get it now. In my current relationship, like, I see the importance of addressing things in the cycle as it needs to happen.
Yes.
And then my clients that are either perimenopausal or menopausal, um, giving there's not really resources available to them. Like, they go to the doctors and it's like, yeah, you just start on HRT, and that just seems to be the prescription is like, okay, you have an issue here, take this. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what's the wisdom in the body? Like, what's this disconnection, this rite of passage that you're talking about, and the community that's required? This missing. Where are all the other sisters that are going through this? Like, surely I cannot be the only one.
Yeah.
Surely, right? And then also these the woo woo abilities. Like, there's these seer. I was
Yeah.
talking to a client yesterday. This seeing ability. And when you say like
Yeah.
cutting out what's irrelevant anymore, this ability to see into the future and see this is where we're going right now. We need to focus attention on this. And like, for me personally, like, I'd love to. When I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and she said, "John, can you? I'd love to see a group of just women who are at this stage in their life, so they don't feel like they're fucking crazy. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually something that's here that's worth investing in." So I called it the
Mm.
Sears Circle. And I have no idea if it'll take off, actually get any attention, any traction. But I'm going to pull my clients into it because I've got
Yeah.
one client who's got two kids, and she's coming online into this other phase of seeing her family dynamic, seeing what's going on in the world, and just not
Yeah.
enough sisterhood to be like, I need help. Like, I need, but sisters
Yeah.
that have either gone through this rite of passage that are at this phase. Um, so yeah, I spoke a lot there. What did you hear anything
Yeah.
about that?
Well, I just first of all, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a conscious man and holding space for being curious about women's experience, and wanting to honor it. Um, that's huge. So, yay for you. And hopefully, you'll do some men circles too, because men, and there's a great book actually that a woman wrote called Menstruation, a field guide for not sucking during a woman's cycle or something. It's such a great title. And it's written like a book you would find to like how to go hiking, like it's designed in a way that's very um just approachable, and she was able to write the book in a month because she followed her cycle.
Right.
And when you were talking about how every cycle you realize if you didn't deal with the thing, it would come back the next cycle. This is the magic of our cycles, is we have a point where our intuition goes poof, and we see everything that is not working, not in alignment. And then it's our job to fix it, or it gets worse the next cycle. So you were right on about that. So good on you. Thank God. And then, and in menopause, You are absolutely right. We actually, our intuition gets heightened like 100-fold, and our visioning capacity, it gets crystal clear. So, you know, doing a lot of journaling, writing, getting out there, speaking, opening your voice to be heard. And that's why these circles are important too, is to be heard and then be empowered, because there's a lot of circles. I just got kicked out of a menopause group because she said I was spreading misinformation and trying to sell womb ceremonies, and that the lady should beware.
Right.
And so I'm like, there are women out there that like, and you don't know if it's safe to talk
Yeah.
about the truth because everyone's buying the narrative. So if you go off topic and you're like, well, actually, I don't want to do hormone therapy. I want to do it naturally. Like, it's the same. It's so similar to like breastfeeding, whether you
Yeah.
breastfeed or use formula, or whether you're a stay at home mom or you're a working mom. It's just like we're pitted against each other throughout our entire lives. It's like, how do we allow us to love each other and come together knowing we're all making choices that we need to make for our personal life path? Because we forget that too.
Yeah.
We are all individuals having individual lives, and no one's life is right, and your life is not right for somebody else. It's just not the way it is. So, yeah, and I heard someone write about the intuition gets stronger. Yes, it totally gets stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I just want more and more women to get out there and actually share the truth and not be afraid of the backlash, because to change these narratives, I mean, we're going up against thousands of years. So, it's actually when religion started that the shame around the menstrual cycle started, because there was shame around sex and there was
Right.
shame around the woman's body and sensuality. And um so going way back, like, so there's just so much. And they used to if I told you some of the ways that they tried to manage women in menopause in the past, like they would inject them with stuff inside of their vagina that had lead in it.
Wow.
They would lock them up in asylums.
This is the
Be-
hysteria
yeah,
end. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. They were told not to go to parties or socialize because they're so like intolerable, I guess, to be
Mm,
around, or they cause problems, right? They're speaking their truth and they're being disruptive. But we need to be the midwife that I'm talking about. She Jane Hardwick Collins. She's amazing, and she started a whole school down in Australia, and she does these 4 seasons rites of passage, and it's just beautiful. But she was like, we need to be revolting. We need a revolution. We we have to. And like I started with my daughter, uh, and sharing how powerful her cycle is and really honoring her cycle. I'm going to be honoring her cycle for her whole life and making sure that that becomes her narrative and that she's intolerant of anyone else telling her anything different.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I had no. I've just grabbed Jane Hardwick Collins because I live in Australia. So, like, where is she?
Oh,
So,
oh,
where is she going to find?
she travels a lot. Speaking, I want to say she's in Melbourne.
All
But
good. All good. I'll work it out.
yeah, you'll find her.
Yeah.
She's awesome. And she has a school called the Shamanic School of Womancraft.
Right.
And yeah, they have lots of classes. And so she's a midwife. She's been a midwife. So how she got into this was she was a midwife. She was a nurse. And then back in the day when they believed babies don't have any pain sensors, she
Right.
was responsible for holding down the boy babies while they um, uh,
Circumcised.
circumcised. Yeah.
Yeah.
circumcise them. And they're all just living in delusion. They're like, oh, they can't feel anything. See, he's just going to sleep. And meanwhile, she's like, no, this is a trauma response.
Traumas. Yeah.
So she started to see the delusions in the medical system. And so she became a midwife and then has been teaching about like natural birth, even if you have to go to the hospital, like how to be in touch with the birthing experience, be in
Mm.
touch with your baby, you know, understanding the process. Something else that came up there's like a story to figure out how to get through menopause. Oh, I wanted to share this. Okay. She taught me how to get through menopause. So a we have gifts that come from each rite of passage. So the first rite of passage is our birth story, how we were born. So you go back and you ask your mom, or if you know, try to recreate the birth story so you can see what's the story that started your life in creation. And that's going to show you how you create in life. So that creation story is how you create everything in your life. Other children, projects, books, whatever you're creating, you could trace it back to your birth story and it will be a mirror of your birth story. So then you have puberty. And then however puberty goes, that's your message of how to see yourself as a woman.
Mm.
So whatever the situations were, whether it was honored, or I know in some Russian cultures, they slap the girls to remind them that it's shameful, like sex is shameful.
Wow.
Um, and I know some Jewish, I have a friend who her mom slapped her when she got her period. So these all give you the information like, oh, okay, this is how I need to approach my life as a woman. And then motherhood is the next rite of passage. And each birth, and every birth is a birth, even if, and she hates to use the word miscarriage because that means it's the mother's fault.
Yeah.
It's actually just a birth that wasn't fulfilled. It's just I forgot the word she used, but it's like, it's still a birth. It's still a baby that did not get come to fruition, right? And
Mm.
then even abortion is still a birth. So each birth, no matter how many children you actually have, or pregnancies that didn't were terminated or didn't go to full term, each one of those you have to count, and then you go through each one individually and figure out what was the gift that you got from that experience. What did it teach you about yourself? How did it make you stronger or wiser? And then you take all those gifts, you write them on a piece of paper, you memorize them, put them on your wall. And anytime you start to get confused in menopause, you go back to that list and you go, okay. So mine was like, do the research. You are strong. Your body knows what to do. And it's like, as soon as I start to feel overwhelmed, that's also my trigger. So hot flashes are the trigger that something's off.
Right.
So it's not like a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
just part of your body's system that's coming online. That's like, here's how you can tell if something's off. And
Mm.
usually right before a hot flash, you have a negative thought. It's some kind of anxiety or something. And that's your cue of like, okay, what's off? So yeah, so all these symptoms are actually magical like beacons. And
Yeah.
the brain fog is there. It's not brain fog, it's you're so in tune with everything, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're so empathic, you're feeling everything. Like you can't go into big festival crowds anymore, it's too much. Like you feel everything. So we just need the tools. We need to be guided, have tools and support. So the sister circles, and I say like, call in your coven. You go create these circles where you can show up and be exactly who you are, It's not about bitching and complaining. It's about how do we harness this power and make a difference in our world?
Mm,
Because that's what's happening.
yeah. Thank you. When you mentioned before the word that she uses instead of miscarriage, is it called? Is it pregnancy loss or something else?
Yeah, she did use the word loss. I think it was pregnancy loss. There was another word in there, like something. I'll find
It's all
it.
good. It's all good.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, it's a pregnancy loss.
right. So,
Yeah.
so right now, if people wanted to reach out to you, like I'm just going to put your Facebook here. Like, what else are you doing? Like, you said that you were going to take a screenshot of that, people, if you want to track down Fluxy. So, what is it that you're offering to women and the people in your community to guide them through these rites of passage and also grounded? Like I hear you doing it really in a really grounded way.
Yeah.
And what I also hear is being able to speak to what's going on creates the safety in that I'm not crazy. Okay, this is a process. This is just another rite of passage that I can either run from or really embrace. And when I have sisters that are going to help me embrace this, I know I'm going to come through it um, with a
Yeah.
with a deeper respect for myself.
Mm,
What are you
yeah.
offering?
Well, so Sunday, August 13th, which is when Venus makes a cazimi with the sun, so very auspicious day, is when I'm having a workshop, and then that's at 2:22 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's called The Magic of Menopause. So you can go to magicofmenopause.com to sign up, to register. And then that's a 2-hour workshop. And I'm going to go through a lot of the things we talked about, but actually, it's a space where there will be a discussion too. So you'll be able to share your story, and we can do some actual work around like what your birth story is, or if you want to go deeper. Um, and I'll be sharing about the biochemical stuff. So I'll get more into the details of that, and also more of the history and the background of HRT, and then ways to supplement your own life, as instead of, there's other ways to support that hormone system rather than going to, HRT. So that's one way. And then I do have consults. So if you just want like an hour consult, like I feel like I'm going crazy, and like please just help me, not jump off this cliff, uh, then I'm available for that. And I do all kinds of energy work. So I do a lot of shamanic practices, and I connect to people deeply. And my gift, what I know is, like, I catalyze people. I catalyze, so I clear the way. So like the path, the alignment of your life kind of gets lined up really quickly. So I use astrology, human design, but I also just tap into the energy field because I can do that. And I work with energetics, like emotional clearing, somatic work. So also being in the body, like you cannot talk your way out of this. You
Can't.
have to move your body.
Yes.
You have to dance every fucking day. You have to like get into your womb and like shake your butt. Like you have to get into your body, because we can get too cerebral, and that hurts. And it doesn't serve anyone. Oh, the other thing I want to say is you have to educate your family that nothing's going to be the same ever again.
Ah.
You have to. You have to go, guys, listen, I'm going through a huge change. I'm not going to be the same. I'm not. It's just the way it is. And then you're teaching your children, and
Yes.
you're educating them on rites of passage. Like, that's what happens. We
Mm.
go through rites of passage and we're not the same. We're totally transformed, like a butterfly, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I use this reference to like this metaphor to the caterpillar, right? Like when you're a caterpillar, you need certain things. But then once you're a butterfly, it's like in menopause, they're trying to make you still need the stuff of the caterpillar,
Yeah.
but you don't need it anymore. You need whole different things. So it's like we don't want to stay in the old stages, but they make it seem like that's what you need to do.
Mm.
In the 1930s, their motto, their marketing message for HRT was um, "Stay feminine forever."
It's great. Like I love that you mentioned that. Like I was going to reach over to my bookshelf and grab a book. Back in a
Yeah,
few seconds.
yeah.
So, like I went to yeah, I went to like a local secondhand bookshop. And I thought, menopause keeps showing up for me. Like my clients keeps being spoken about. I need to understand more about it. And I went to and then I found this book. So it was hormone replacement therapy and its natural alternatives. And I haven't read it yet, but it's just like it's something that I knew I needed to have in my field to be like, okay, this is
Mm.
coming up. Women need more support into this epoch of their life, where we're going next. What do you think it is that people are afraid of when it comes to like these rites of passage? Like what have you seen from your experience and the feedback that you've gotten and what you've heard from Jane? Like, what's the fear?
It's 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 the fear of everyone, which is the fear of the end. It's that we can feel the end is coming. And in these transformative, when you become a mother, it becomes all about your kids. Like you can't even think about yourself. You have no time to think about anybody else other than the survival of your family and your kids. And that's it. And then when you're going through puberty, you're just like, I don't know what the fuck. I mean, you just have no clue. You're just like, why am I emotional all the time? And why am I now interested in like the opposite sex? And why am I like, or not even the opposite sex, because you could like the same sex, right? But you're more like you're feeling more uh into your body more, and you're
Mm,
feeling that eros, right? And that's the other thing is we can it's taboo to talk about the sexual feeling, but the sexual feelings, that kind of yummy, delicious turn on feeling is just life force turning on. It's not bad. And
yeah,
it doesn't mean I want to go sleep with everybody. It
exactly.
it just means I'm turned on. Literally my life force is like bing, and that's it. That's all that's happening. But, so we're out of touch with that. That's a whole other workshop. Um,
And a really
but
important one because when you were
yes.
talking before about like sex and sexuality, like the body will just do things. You don't have to act on what your body is telling you to do or what's there for whatever meaning that you're giving it. But if you can be with the sensation, like being turned on, being that,
Mm,
oh, that guy's cute or that girl's cute or whatever's there, it's like, yeah, but you don't need to go and lean into that and be obedient. You can just be with that and make it a conscious
yes.
choice. What is it that you want to create next?
Yes. And then it's conscious coupling. It's like you're like, wow, I'm feeling something. And you're just being more aware of yourself. Like, oh, and that's something beautiful that's come out of menopause too, is like this awareness of like what actually brings me joy
Mm,
versus what I've been conditioned to think brings me joy.
yeah.
And that's amazing because you can feel it now. You're like, oh, I didn't realize I really like that, that person or that food or that even that environment can be
Mm,
a turn on. So yeah, so it comes down to death, and we don't do death well. We don't do birth well. We don't do that well. It's just like, how quickly can we get over this?
yeah.
So the whole shamanic path is the shamans, the earliest shamans were women. They were midwives. They brought babies into the world. They helped their whole tribe get through life and then into death. And so we don't do death well. And knowing we're not at we, it's like there's wisdom in endings. And
Yes.
like, how can we celebrate that our life is coming to a culmination and ending? Because that's the legacy part.
Yes.
Like honoring, like, okay, what is my legacy? What is the gifts? That was part of these gifts of the rites of passage, is like, okay, now I'm here. What is the gift? That's why I feel like this is my gift, because this is what's showing up for me at this age, and I'm just going with it. Is like, it's not about what am I building or how am I going to make money or how am I going to, like, none of those things matter. It's like, well, what do I do with all this that I've gotten? And now what can I share that has to be relieved? So what's interesting is the rose, they use the metaphor as a rose. So if the rosebud is like puberty, and you're like in this tight bud, and then the life force like and then you blossom and you're into your womanhood, and then as a mother, like, you're starting to not there's a wilting of the petals, right? But you're not quite wilting yet. And then at menopause, your petals are starting to soften, but
Mm,
the smell of the rose gets bigger.
right.
So you can really smell a rose, and the scent is stronger. And then when all the petals fall off, when you go into crone, um, all that's left is the rose hip, and that's where all the medicine is.
Mm,
And it's like seeing yourself as part of nature has always helped me. As I always reflect back to, like, okay, I'm not some. I mean, I'm sure I'm a magical being, but it's like I'm also part of nature.
yeah.
I'm just a being here. So if I can reflect in nature myself, then I'm going to have the medicine, and I'm going to have the medicine for my daughter. This is the other cool thing I learned, was that when you have children and they need you, your biology knows that they need you, and so it makes you live longer.
Mm,
Isn't that interesting?
it is. It really is.
It's so interesting. So, we put all our old people in old folks' homes, and my grandmother said they put me here to die. And that's the thing, is like, when you're no longer needed, or like literally, like, nobody's counting on you.
Yeah. Your
You're
utility is diminishing.
Yes, exactly. But in tribes, it didn't diminish. It was like it needed more. It was like, help us, give us your wisdom. And if we respected our elders and even ourselves as we're becoming these elders, that we have wisdom to share, and start creating the circles of sharing where it's being called out of us. Like, yes, what can you share with us? Tell us your stories. What do you see? You know, like,
Mm,
that's what we need to develop. But it's just, it's the fear of death. And once you come to terms with it, what I love about yoga is and in Buddhism too, they practice dying. So you practice taking your last breath. And the Dalai Lama said, when you die, when all your systems shut down, you're still in your body for 3 minutes. Your consciousness is still there. Even though your brain's done, your heart's done, your breathing's done, you're still there, your consciousness. In those 3 minutes, you get to decide what your next life's going to be.
mm,
So if we drug up people before they're dying, and sure, I do understand, not it doesn't apply to everyone. There are
yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
in a lot of pain
Yeah.
and they need what they need. But it's become also normalized to just shoot them up with morphine, and then they die actual medically induced deaths.
Mm,
And they're not allowed to die at their own pace.
yeah. With grace.
Right.
Mm, yeah.
So, practicing that and making sure you're set up in the way you want your death handled, or your ending handled, like, and approaching it like you would your kid's birthday party.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
this is a celebration you're going to end. How do you want to be celebrated?
yeah.
It's nothing to fear, because it's going to happen. So, my daughter was like, oh, I don't want to have a period because then I'm going to be having to bleed on my events, like we were going out of town. And I was like, there's nothing you can do about it, but
Yeah.
honor it. And if you honor it, it goes way easier. If you take resting time and you're not trying to push yourself because, well, this event's happening and I don't want to miss it, like that we as women have a way of building up our boundaries of like, you know what? No,
Yes.
I'm more important. No, my body's telling me it's time to rest. And
Yeah.
it's okay if I miss this one thing, you know.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
reminds me of one of my when I used to work in corporate. There was a staff member who had like late stage endometriosis, and she was early like mid 20s,
Mm.
and I'd always let her take the day off to rest because it was like this is I can't be here anymore. Like why would I force somebody to work if they're just in pain, right?
Right.
And then what would happen was the HR department would end up calling me and say, John, she can't take any more holidays or any more days off. I said, well, why? We're not running a charity here. Like, we're not running a hospital. But this person was really good at her job, but her
Yeah.
body was just her body. So
Right.
there's real like this disconnect between, well, hey, like she's valuable to me as an asset, as an employee, and as an individual. Why can't I? This people can cover her work. What's the issue? So I can
Right.
see this real is the body being used as a tool and a fulcrum to get the job done versus honoring the whole
Mm.
individual and their life experience. And I guess for me, where I'd like to see the world go is a real honoring of the individual and being able to detach the utility that we think that the person needs to contribute from who they actually are as a
Yes.
person.
Hmm.
Um, and for
So
you, like,
beautiful.
what would you like to see? Like, what would be
Mm.
your vision, based on your experience, where you're at right now, where you'd like to see the world go and own and honor? Like, what would you like to see?
Oh my gosh. It's pretty radical, but you know, I'm a big thinker. But uh, you know, I see women coming together. I think there's stages, but I feel like we need to have women's colonies that women go and they learn how to live together, how to uh, exist as we used to. So we wash clothes together, we cook together, we are together. So we reprogram the conditioning that has kept us separated. So it's a little bit extreme, yes, but for a while, and I also feel like men need to do their own work. There's a whole men's work also needed. So it's kind of like for just a little while we reset, just breaking up into colonies of men and women. And then when we need to come together because we want to,
Yeah.
obviously, we love, I mean, I'm being so supported and held by my partner. Like, oh my gosh. Like, thank God for men. So, especially conscious men, right? Like men that are really doing the work to like, oh, yeah, this is something's off. Like you can tell. And it's like, okay, so helping to reestablish those. And I don't know if it's like, I feel like women also need to have babies together. The babies need to grow up together. The like, and people, this woman in this group I got kicked out of, she was like, "You're talking from the dark ages," and I was like, "Wow." Um, I mean, I feel like we're in the dark ages right now. I feel like everything is so psychotic and crazy. I mean, we kids are just living off of iPads and because parents don't want to have to deal with the repercussion of if I take the iPad away at dinner, how are we going to have a decent dinner? Like,
Mm-hmm.
holy cow. So I so there is some of that, like, we need to kinda go back to our roots a little bit and reestablish them, and maybe it's, like, a month or you know, in Europe, they have holidays that are months long. So, I feel like rites of passage are good points to address this. So, coming together in women's circles with your young daughters, right? And so I am on purpose not addressing gender fluidity and all the pronouns and everything happening right now because I think that's an extra layer of
Yeah.
like craziness that's happening because of all the
Yeah,
disconnection.
just symptomatic.
Yeah. So, not to say, I mean, there's been transvestites and all of this has been going on forever. So
Yes.
that's fine. Yes, that's true. Everyone's wired the way they're wired.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just talking about generally, there is a reconditioning we need. And if women and young girls could get together and have like a ceremony or rites of passage at puberty when the bleed comes and educate around the bleed, celebrate around the bleed, and then actually start to incorporate these things in schools where girls do get days off of
Yeah.
school if they need to take them, and that they are supported in their cycle at
Yeah.
school, um, and then also through motherhood. So if you are pregnant, like that, there you it's almost like a requirement that you come together with all the other pregnant women and you are going together through this rite of passage,
Mm,
and you're being supported by the elders. So the elder women are coming in, and the young girls who are, because children need to be a part of birth too.
yeah.
That's part of their learning, like what it is. Otherwise, you grow up and like I had no idea. I was like, it was a project. I was like, oh look, it's time for me to have a baby. All right, cool. How am I going to do this? I'm going to read this book. Okay, I'm going to track my cycle. Yay. Okay, I'm pregnant. Wee. Okay, I'm having the baby. Holy shit. Like, oh wow, all these things that nobody talked about. Like that was the big wake up call for me.
Mm,
So I think that's important. And then obviously the eldership is going through menopause together, like that there needs to be these times of our lives that we're coming together just like we did before. Like everything was sacred in the Native American cultures. Everything was sacred. And we've completely lost that. Like it's
yeah.
almost like being sacred means like you're part of the church and you're part of like the like, I mean, it's just crazy. It's like no, like we have to bring sacredness back in a way that is not like trying to control people, and it's like really helping them be individuals and like find their own sacred spaces,
Mm,
their own definition of sacredness. Oh, that's the other thing about menopause is women need to start having rituals. Rituals are going to help bringing back the sacred and the awareness of their wisdom. So morning rituals, having an altar space, evening rituals, rituals following the moon. So Jane also has a app called
spinning the wheel.
Spinning Wheels.
Yeah.
Spinning Wheels app, and it tracks the moon, and it also tells you all this stuff about how you're feeling, what you should think about, good questions to ask. It tracks your cycle too. So if you are still having a cycle, but if you're not, if you're in the MAGA stage, um, it just it gives you something to create your own cycle with the moon, because we're still affected by the moon, even if we're not in the hormonal cycle. We have the moon. And so having those rituals, moon rituals, is going to be really important to bring the sacred back to this part of this time. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's
Oh
so
my
good.
God.
I loved all of this. I loved all of this, Flux. Um, yeah, I feel deeply honored that you wanted to share and just felt comfortable to share all of this. And like, this feels like it's so important to be shared and listened to and made sacred as well. Like this honoring of the conversation.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else that
Yeah.
you'd like to share before I hit the end stream button and
um, I'm just so appreciative of this, and that you listened to whatever had you reach out to me, the divine dropping in, and allowing this conversation to happen and be recorded and hopefully be shared. And it's all planting seeds, So I just thank you so much for the work that you're doing and helping relationships and helping people navigate in a world that's whew,
Yeah.
little weird, little weird, little weird. So, finding these safe spaces where like we can be like, do you think this is weird? Like we can feel the same.
Yeah.
Like this something's not right here.
Something's
Yeah.
not right here. Exactly. So thank you.
Yeah.
What I'll
You're
do is
welcome.
I'll hit the end stream button and we can wrap up off camera. And this also records your own private streams. I'll send you the recording. So if you do want to create your own content, because you spoke, there's a lot of real nuggets of wisdom that you might want
Yeah.
to give to somebody else to like cut up and make content for you. That's really, really potent. So thank
Thank
you all for
you.
listening. I see there's 3 people that are still watching. So if you want to post your comments and what you got out of it, and we'd love to see all of those. And mad love to all of you. Thank you.
Mwah.